Hello, SpeedGaming 3. Welcome to Chexhuman versus robjbeasley. This is a lower bracket match. Game 1 between the two. In this leg of the bracket, we have the top. This is the top 8 of the lower bracket. The top 4 on the other side have actually been determined. Someone in Gamachu will be racing, and then the winner of this match and the winner of Sleepy versus Homemade Beer will be racing. The pendant crystal check, it's actually all red, I think. So Eastern is the red pendant. And Hera and Desert, the red crystals. We don't care that the crystals are red, but sometimes you can read logic. Pyramid Fairy is accessible with the mirror alone. Mirror alone or the Moon Pearl and Boots. But the Moon Pearl and Boots method is out of logic, so if you find it that way, you can make some decisions about where the items you found might be locked behind. Whether or not they're in logic, or whether the mirror is available somewhere. Okay, so we got Lumberjacks coming up, just hearts. Both of them pretty synced up now. That little blip you saw was just syncing the runners. Chex really likes to do tree pulls in the early game. You'll often see him setting up multiple ones. That's why he killed that bird. Doing his map check, seeing his 5-6 crystals and red pendant. Looks like Rob is an early cat player, going so far as to farm up one bomb. One bomb is usually okay. You usually find bombs in one of these, 5-item locations. You need the bomb for this one, and then for the next one, by the time you get there, you'll probably already have a bomb. But Rob also needs some money. You want to go into Kakariko with 50 rupees. That gives you enough chance to farm rupees in the pots if you don't find money here. But again, there's like 5 checks in each one, so you usually do find something. Meanwhile, checks go straight up the mountain, out of the Lost Woods. This is a popular opener in glitch modes because it gives you more options to find things that are good to have before you go to Kakariko. Rob actually, just not wanting to double dip the well, is going to go straight to the bomb shop down here. And Chex is taking matters into his own hands and getting the bombs at Graveyard Ledge. This is usually people's first bombs. Rob is also, he got some money, but he spent it all on the bombs. So he needs more money to get the bottle merchant than he normally would have needed. And Chex, again, taking matters into his own hands. Not only has enough money for bottle merchant, but can actually buy the Zora item coming out of this, if he decides to go in that direction. But Rob found the glove, so there are benefits to going to Kakariko early. Is that I usually do find something good here that can make what Chex is doing easier. Even the boomerang is good. Something to hit enemies with, something to hit switches with on the mountain. Rob would not have been rewarded going in here He did not get free bombs. But he's also not able to do the bottle merchant. Yeah, more shields than bombs in 11 minutes. If only we could explode shields. I'm sure there would be some people very happy about that. Tears of the Kingdom spoilers, by the way. You can totally explode shields in that game. Chex is swimming through land. We love walking on water and swimming on land in this game. It's so good. Being extra cautious with select buffering. This cave is actually pretty easy to get into. I think you can usually just eyeball it, but Chex doesn't want to risk that. He also did a little sword out strafe to get out of the cave, just to ensure that he doesn't get kicked back into the cave when he tries to go down. So, robjbeasley minus Bottle Merchant has cleared out Kakariko. And for all of Rob's resource issue, Chex hasn't actually found very much on this route. There was a puddle in Link's house the whole time. Nobody started at Link's house in this scene, so nobody actually had a bottle for Kakariko. So if you are a Sank starter and you see that, you might be a little worried that your opponent got a free bottle and that something's on Sick Kid. If Rob studies his opponent, Chex is very consistent about starting at Sanctuary, so he would know. But Chex, you can see he hasn't been to CAC yet, so just because he started at Sanctuary doesn't mean that he didn't have that bottle. Or a different one. So Rob finds the flippers, making some of the stuff Chex did simultaneously easier, but also slower. Usually beneficial to have Water Walk doing those checks because you can get to Zora faster. But it's also safer to not be in Water Walk or Fake Flipper state at any point. And we have a sword at Checkerboard Cave. So Rob will be comfortably equipped for anything else he does in the light world. Except for the stuff that requires bow. Well, Bottle Merchant, just a piece of heart. So Rob is off the hook so far. He's off the hook until Sick Kid. Also just a heart piece from Sick Kid, so Rob is still off the hook. And that's it for things that Chex can do that Rob couldn't do. Now it will just be some steps retracing, with Rob showing us new Chex in Mini Moldorm Cave. Chex skipped over all of South Shore doing the bridge swimming straight to Ice Rod Cave route. He can do this later. Ooh, Rob having a little bit of trouble with that Mini Moldorm in the middle. He has to be careful. Decides to go for a bomb for the last one, just for a little safety and a little speed. If you get reasonably lucky and time your bombs well, bombs are one of the fastest ways to clear this room. Rob also not continuing to Ice Rod Cave indicates that he will probably do a similar route to what Chex did. I'll just do it in the other order. He's also following the rule of when you have the glove, you should just do back of escape. So that's what he's doing here. Turns up a hammer. Hammer's a good item. Required for most things. Most games. You can do a little bit to skip the hammer if Ice Palace is a pendant. And GT Big Key cooperates. To skip the hammer for Pod is a glitch that Chex has done before, but he's probably not up to speed on, so I wouldn't expect to see that from either runner. We've also seen Green Pendant Swamp. Chex has checked Sahasrahla and found that out, which means unlikely that we'll be skipping any major items, except maybe the hookshot. Flippers have already been found, so that's the other thing that you could skip with Swamp Pendant. And then perhaps a bow could be skipped if Pod is a pendant. Both runners are capable of hovering. I think Rob is probably a little bit more practiced at it at the moment because of the speedruns that he does that require it. Chex has done those in the past, but hasn't actually been playing very much Link to the Past, so it's probably, in case of emergency, he'll hover, but would rather have a hook shot. He's also on a new controller, which could be a problem. I think in the NMG race that happened yesterday with a lot of people in it, Chex was interviewed that his controller being new was a bit of a hurdle for him. So hopefully that won't harm him too much in this race. Rob is the first one up the mountain. I was not looking at what he got in Hera. We pay attention to Hera because sometimes you can climb it and sometimes you can't. And if you can't climb it, you either have to do Hera Basement, if the small key was given, or you have to go in from Meyer and use the Meyer big key to unlock the one big key door in Hera so you can climb it normally. Realistically, most people will look for a hookshot and just Hera pot. It's not in Logic to do it, but it's way faster than what is in Logic. A bottle for Rob, the blue potion in it. Blue potion has some extra utility in this mode. Which I'll explain if it happens. If the Moon Pearl is late, the blue potion can act as a temporary replacement for the Moon Pearl to allow them to do some extra stuff. It's not in Logic to use it that way, but it is sometimes faster than what is in Logic, just like a lot of other things. Oh, okay. Hexshot and Moonpearl are just sitting here in Paradox Cave. So not only are we not hovering, but we're also probably not doing anything fancy with the blue potion. I am mildly suspicious of Swamp, but Hybrid Major Glitches does some extra things to Swamp. It shuffles the small key in a random location within the dungeon, and if it's not placed in the front, or you don't have the mirror, then the requirement is to go in through Mire and spend one of the Mire small keys. Which means that most of the time, 9 times out of 10, and maybe a little bit more because of the mirror, Swamp Palace is locked behind a medallion. So Rob finding powder gives him an opportunity to clean up some checks he left behind here. The powder just being a heart and the other ones being hearts. He'll have some peace of mind, but he won't get anything extra out of it. But he also won't lose much because he was already going to come here anyway. He might be able to use the portal to start his Dark World route, the NMG way. Chex is wise to get rid of that fairy. We do like to death warp a lot. We're not always given a mirror, so being able to death warp is just a good thing to have. It's also why you might see people avoid armor upgrades. It looks like I was right about Rob's path to the Dark World. It's probably faster to do what he did than to save and quit and descend from the mountain. Saving and quitting is very slow. He does show us that, unfortunately, Thieves Town's a pendant. Now he's here, having to make that decision. One of the downsides to starting the Dark World in a location like this is you commit yourself to having to make a decision about a pendant dungeon or an unclearable crystal before you actually see which, whether it's a pendant or not. But he is rewarded with a bow in the brewery. He also seems to be taking a route that avoids Thieves Town. He's opening it up here, but okay, he's just gonna go in. In the absence of mirror, I think most runners will just do the whole thing. But depending on what he finds in the front, he might walk out. Death warping's not an option, because it'll kick him out of the Dark World. It's the way the game works. It's patched out in normal rando, but in glitch modes, the vanilla behavior of getting kicked out of the Dark World when you die in a dungeon is preserved. And the game does that because you haven't defeated Aga 1 yet, and it thinks that you should be in the Light World. Yeah, and that's true, that bow probably changes his decision. Maybe he would have avoided this altogether. Ice Red turns up too, so it was required at least to go in the first 4. Something he doesn't have to worry about. This looks like an exit. It's not too bad to walk out. It's really not that much better than, or not that much worse than death warping, even if he could death warp. Chex is starting at Hype Cave, and it could be an issue for him. If he decides not to do Thieves Town at all, he'll miss out on Ice Rod. The best case scenario for Chex is that he finds a mirror before he gets there to make it easier to get there and be able to just leave. So when you have the mirror, it gives you a little peace of mind that you can just mirror out if you don't want to stay. And if he also clears a lot of other stuff, he can make the decision to go all the way to the back, and there might be something there too. And that could give him a significant edge over Rob. Chex is using the latest method for pyramid swim. This is that out of logic method that I alluded to earlier. Currently, Pyramid Fairy is locked behind 2 red crystals or the mirror. This is also the fastest way to get in. Rob shows us that Bombos is the medallion required for Mire, and by extension, very likely Swamp as well. Chex making sure that he has a clean transition up here. Doing that swim can break your camera in a dangerous way if you're not careful. You could hit it and hard lock your game, so he pauses to make sure his camera is locked properly before going up. He has hard locked there before, so he learned his lesson. Meanwhile, Rob gets a sword from Stumpy. That's actually a dupable sword, but you have to know it's a sword. At least I think it's dupable. Maybe I should check. Okay, Chex is doing... We used to do something called Catfish Death Mountain Ascent. That puts you here. He's doing a more modern method that goes straight from Catfish itself rather than from near the witch's hut. It uses the newer swim clipping method. So it's even more Catfish than Catfish DMA was. And Rob also taking the swim out. Rex might be thinking about... He might be thinking about GT. He's thinking about Spy Cave, so he's farming. Spy Cave is just something you do on the way. Maybe he'll do Spy Cave and not walk out and end it here. It would be a little bit difficult for him to walk out without drinking the blue potion. I don't think he really wants to drink the blue potion if he can avoid it. Alright. Gets just enough time with Berna to lift the rock. And does indeed quit out. Meanwhile, Rob is in pod. While a pod seems like the obvious choice because we have bow and hammer, it's not free. The Dark Turtle room could be a little bit tough without a fire source. And pod itself could be tough to navigate without a mirror. You have to be a little thoughtful about how you enter and exit the dungeon. Not sure how he ended up going back in. Going out and in again. He must have been holding a direction. Probably just holding down, which is what we do to get back in. So Chex has access to all the checks in here except for tile room, upstairs, and right side. I think he would like to have a full magic bar for Ice Armos. He might drink the blue potion there if he doesn't find one here. He's also missing that bow that Rob found in Village. I think seeing that Thieves is a pendant, he's doing that thing where you avoid making the decision at all. So he doesn't have to think about Thieves until he's ready to do the whole thing. Or has the mirror. He has to get there at some point to get the ice rod out of these. And the bow is there too, in the brewery. But there might be a bow somewhere else. GT is climbable. If he were to find a fire source, he could go upstairs. He finds a fire source in the double fire bars. It's the fire room. Rob finds 2 keys here. I think he might have gotten like a 5-key pod. I saw the compass show up in the big key chest. Normally if there's 2 keys there we can skip them, but if it's a 5-key pod you can't actually know that 2 keys are there until you've checked it or gone to the back. Ooh. Rob's indecision on the hammer jump bridge costs him. So what's Chex's plan for... It looks like he's gonna exhaust his magic with the Cane of Berna and then probably drink the potion to finish the fight. Doing it with the sword alone is pretty slow unless you have beams. If you have beams, it's not so bad. Beams are, I think, the 3rd best weapon for Armos. Oh, he's going for bombs. He gets a nice hit on him. And meanwhile, Rob finds Bombos in Pod. Bombos is access to the front of Mire. But it's also access to Swamp. X finds a mirror and the mitts. That gives him an easy ticket back to Village of Outcasts. And an easy decision to make going into the front 4 alone. And leaving when he finds the ice rod, if he chooses to. He has other places he can go though. He can do Hera, the hook shot. Surprised Rob hasn't done that yet. Now Hera's in Logic because of Bombos, so he might return. I think Rob was trying to death warp out. This is why you want to have a mirror in Pod. Chex will have a little bit of an advantage here. And he'll have the lamp too, which will make the back much easier. As long as Chex doesn't go in now without the bow, that would be pretty sad. He's very close to having that bow. Bombos Medallion makes the pod turtles a lot safer for Rob and a lot more manageable. It's pretty hard to just blind hammer them. But if you can hammer them and cast Bombos a few times, you get 4 casts of each medallion with the magic bar. And if he really needs to, he can drink the blue potion. He might have an easier time. The Chex is going up. I think this is the beginning of his route to Bumper Ledge. This is a glitch that's in the 100% run. It could put you straight on the ledge, and it'll start his route. Rob groping around the turtle room. Not casting bombos, just using the hammer and the sword to navigate. He uses the sword to poke, just to see where they are. I think he's actually opting for swords to deal damage, because hammers have a chance of flipping the turtles back over again. Especially if you've hammered more than one of them. Chex is giving us our first glimpse of Skull Woods. It's not clearable yet, but it is on the way. Rob makes it through. Gets spin speed to make the hammer hitbox more friendly. This gives his hammer a different hitbox than it would have if you had not armed spin speed. I'm actually not sure he has it. That looked like the hammer was just not landing hits when it should have. Chex found both items in Skull. One of them is the mushroom, and this might incentivize him to activate his flute. Because I think he'll save time activating the flute and using it over just walking to the mushroom turn-in. And the flute will give him time save elsewhere too. But it is very important that he at least enters Thieves Town to get the first 4 to get the ice rod. Hopefully, since he's done so much, it'll be more appealing to him than if he had just gone here from the start. In fact, I'm surprised that Rob went in, because he had very little reason to. Chex is continuing. If he wanted to leave, he would have mirrored out. So this could be something new, or it could be a huge waste of time. It's hard to know. Between the items that the runners have, Pedestal is completely in logic. And since we're coming upon that point, we can start talking about Go Mode. The Canis Samaria and the Fire Rod are the only things they need. Chex needs to get the Bombos out of back of pod. And Rob just needs to find a fire source so he can actually do stuff. Or he can just find the Fire Rod somewhere else. He's in Swamp. This is a little bit slower without Mirror, but it's not that much slower. You might be wondering, how did he get in here without Mirror? He flooded the dam and then saved and quit, and it actually stays flooded as long as you don't overworld transition or flute, allowing him to walk out from Hera and go back in to get Swamp State. That way when he gets to Argus he can actually get the green pendant and not just the Hera crystal. It doesn't look like he actually killed Moldorm. Maybe he got both items. Maybe he'll do it at the end. Tempered sword in the big chest, swamp. Not required, but very nice to have. Chex is still on sword 1, but we'll find one at the Stumpy if he continues that path. The only way I anticipate... Oh, I don't see Chex skipping Stumpy. He can't even go into Maya right now, which is the only way he could have missed it. Unless he decides to flute away with the bow and go to Pod and Eastern and skip the South entirely. But I think he wants to know what the Maya Medallion is. Otherwise, not much else found inside of Thieves Town. It's very good that he went in and got his Ice Rod. Definitely better than not going in at all, but he did lose a little time going to the back. Left side swamp not paying out for Rob. He's thinking about leaving. He's checking his menu to see what he's missing. He's missing the map and compass. But he has the small key and big key. Actually, I think he just has the big key. Maybe the back would have been skippable, but it's hard to justify skipping when he went here and didn't find progression. Plus, there's always the green pendant turn-in and pedestal, which is in logic. For between the two runners, it's in logic. Jax has the opportunity to clean up desert here that Rob didn't have. Having both the mirror and the lamp. And Rob couldn't get here at all, and even if he could, he didn't have a fire source for the back. Okay, where is Rob going? He found a shovel somewhere. He's gonna check that. He's in the light world. He's in the light world because he never went to the dark world. So far it's looking like a slight advantage for Chex. Just getting around more efficiently and getting the things that Rob has gotten. But there's still a lot that can happen. Chex could also decide that Swamp is the play and lose the time that Rob lost. Rob did Swamp and only found a sword. But there's still Green Pendant. And if Pedestal is the answer, then both of them have a pendant the other one doesn't have, so it's a little bit neutral in that count. But if it's specifically the Green Pendant, that's very good for Rob. Oh, he hasn't even been here. Oh, it's a Silparis. That's cute. So, he'll have an easier Ganon fight than Chex, if Chex doesn't do this. But the other bow is so free that it's hard to... If this is a spoiler log race, you wouldn't do Swamp for these things. Let's just put it that way. Chex is cleaning up the Smith chain. He found the mitts and mirror in GT. So it makes sense to do this. I think Chex is maybe thinking that he should go to activate his flute instead of running over to the purple chest. Where is he going? Oh, he has the powder. Oh! Rob is scouting some stuff that Chex has already done. This is the waterfall Chex. As you can see, it's taking him a little bit longer because he has flippers. There's a little bit of a benefit to doing this early. Nice blue potion, though. I don't think Chex got one of those. Although he could have. Yeah, Chex is deciding activating flute is better, because it will pay dividends down the line. When you have the mitts, flute is really good. Even more so when you have mirror. Rob is looking a little indecisive at that save and quit. He's actually cleaning up some Sphere 1s. I don't think King's Tomb has been checked yet. He can do that with the hook shot. Neither runner has done the front of escape either. Nice smooth Tomb Raider for Rob. Is Chex doing... Okay. I thought Chex is gonna do some graphical corruption stuff here, just for fun. But he chose not to, or he just quick swapped to bombs by accident. There's a thing you can do where you like magic powder the witch and put some bombs down and press X and it will put underworld graphics on your overworld screen and it looks really funky. And I thought that's what he was doing. Oh, but instead he's just gonna go to Pod and pick up the Bombos Medallion. I'll have an easier time here because he has Mirror and Lamp. He also might go to Eastern. That's not something Rob has done. Rob didn't have the Mirror when he was in Pod, so he didn't even have the Temptation to go in. The closest thing he had to Temptation was when he got the bow from Sahasrara. He could have continued on. But he's choosing to go to Ice instead. Ice is logically behind the mitts, but nobody actually cares about that. So Rob is doing it. Everyone just goes into the assumption that mitts are out there somewhere. And Rob is right. They're in GT. They're easy to get. Rex is taking a rather unusual route through this, skipping the big key chest. I wonder what prompts him to do that. Rob will show off his NMG skills. No cane means he had to IPBJ. I also think he went through the front normally. You wouldn't clip through the lobby to do IPBJ unless you were going to skip Pengator Room. It's almost certainly faster to just go normally if you want to do Pengator Room first. But if you do clip through the lobby and skip Pengator Room and don't have to go back to it, that's actually super fast. That's a huge advantage. But it's also a little bit of a risk. If you skip Pengator Room and has the big key, and the big chest has an item, you're not getting that item ever. If Pengator Room itself is an item, you can go back in and get it pretty easily. Rob finds Sword 4. I don't think he's happy to see that. I think he wants his Sword 3 from Swamp to Matter. So Rob's still plugging away at Ice Palace. It's quite a bit slower to full clear this when you don't have the cane. Looks like he's having to go to Ice Tea Room and Big Chest. For all that this might be slow for Rob, I think it's very likely that Chex will do this next. He has logical access to ice. It's the only crystal he has logical access to and can clear that he's not already done. He could also climb Ganon's tower. It's actually surprising that he didn't when he was there. Because he had the mirror and lamp. He had the ability to climb. Maybe he wants to leave it open so that he does find... He was still missing a lot, so if he did find Fire Rod and Cane, he could have gone back in and checked the right side. But now we know Fire Rod and Cane are go mode. So Chex has no reason not to just do GT. Except for the slight efficiency you get from doing it last. And, you know, a little efficiency from having Fire Rod in GT. Having Cane. It's a little bit harder to climb, but it's not that much harder. You can use it to get to the escape, too. Like, you can go to GT and climb it, and then mirror and do Uncle. There's a couple items in the front of escape. Alright, nice clean cold stare for Rob. Butter Sword makes it pretty easy, but it's a little bit harder with Bombos, in my opinion. Most people practice with Fire Rod, and the timing's a little different. Nice simultaneous crystals from both. Chex mirroring, that's a sign that he might be going to Eastern, but he also might just be fluting. Fluting to Ice, for example. He's going into Eastern. So this is new for him. If he does all of this, he might be incentivized to do Swamp. Well, that's a Fire Rod. What does that actually do for him? The more I think of it, I don't think it does that much. He's already gotten both items out of Skull. Most of GT, you know, GT doesn't care about the Fire Rod until you have the Cane. Unless it's your only fire source. Turtle Rock doesn't care about the Fire Rod until you have the Cane. So I wonder if that was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, thinking, oh, I have the Fire Rod, I can do everything now. But on the other hand, Chex does have things he can do that are good. So he didn't have to continue to Eastern necessarily. And it's not too much longer to get back in than it would have been to just continue when he was there. But that said, that Fire Rod is a very good find for him because he does have another advantage over Rob, who is currently cleaning up things that Chex has already done. He's doing East of Mountain, Dark World. He might dip into Turtle Rock, Caneless, which could be a problem, but it could also just have the Cane. Okay, Rob is pausing. What is he thinking? Could be an IRL interruption. Maybe he just needs to stretch. Get a drink. Get a reverse drink. Oh, Chex has not quite enough magic for this. He does have a blue potion, so he's not in trouble. He also has a lamp. Yeah, looking at Rob's stream, he does appear to be AFK. Hopefully this won't cost him the raise. Next is trying to do the bow wizards too, which is getting all 4 of them in one cycle with just the bow, which is something you have to practice. It's not free. It gets a little bit bullied on Fusda Bridge. Okay, top of GT for checks. He doesn't need that key. He knows that there can't be anything. Well, there can be something in Tyler. No, there can't. He has Fire Rod. He's looking for Kane. He doesn't have to worry about GT. Rob would have to worry about Tyler. But Rob is back. It's good to see. He's doing the rest of the mountain. Check's getting bullied again on Moldorm. I'm not sure what happened to his sword there. That was very strange. He's having a little bit of a hard time. It's like he's just signing that slashes are safer until he can get back on rhythm. There we go, Moldorm's down. Rob saves and quits out of Catfish. Where does he go next? If he wants to stay in this game, you can go to Eastern and do all of it. And if the cane is deeper in Eastern, that's bad news bears for checks. However, GT is pretty appealing. It's hard not to do this, and this is good for him too, because this will give him a fire source and some other stuff, like the mirror, maybe make routing a little easier. But I'm not sure if any of the stuff in here is actually going to lead to progression. Ooh, Rob opening the forbidden door. It's actually so much faster than walking out that it's probably worth it, especially because we just always do tile room. The only way that this is a problem is if he wants to climb and tile room's a key and he needs it. But if that's the case, then he doesn't need to climb anyway, because that means Kane won't be upstairs. So I like that. I like that he opened that door. He'll have an easier Ice Armos with the silver arrows. Chex is doing the thing that I mentioned earlier, which is to use the GT climb as an excuse to do the escape. But he hasn't found the cane yet. The runners have done a pretty good job of always being somewhere new for us, keeping this race very entertaining. While they may not doing that on purpose, do give them a follow so you can see more of these runners because they do amazing things with this game. Both of them are speedrunners who like to do glitch categories and no major glitches. And that is Gomo for Chex. He finds the Cane of Samaria in the Dark Cross, so that's not quite Sphere 1, but it is very early accessible. I mean, you can get it right away. It's a pretty strong advantage for him. Rob would have to beeline Eastern, make the same decision to leave, and then do the escape. Now Rob might do the climb and get the cane first. And that might lead him to do things like full clear mire. Do as much of TR as you can do without the fire rod. It's a little hard to get back to Eastern at that point. So what does Chex have to do? He gets to go mode Ice Palace, Mire, and TR. Finish Skullwoods. He will... It's going to be a bit of a question mark whether he'll get the sword. That's nice. Very likely he will not get that sword. That sword is in Freezor chest. And I think Chex is comfortable enough with Master Sword Silverless that he wouldn't consider the chances of finding a sword to be worth the time spent looking for it. So he's very likely to be finishing this game on Master Sword Silverless. Okay, dungeon order for Chex. Ice first. It doesn't really matter, actually. I don't think there's a whole lot Chex can do to make the dungeon order more efficient. He has the flute in the midst, so he's just going to be fluting everywhere. The best he could do is maybe do Turtle Rock first and hope a sword shows up, but we know it won't. In fact, he's in the correct place to find a sword if he cares to look. I don't think he'll find this one, though. And there's Chex bypassing his last chance at a sword. The time difference on Ganon is going to be significant, which means that Rob is not out of this yet. If he does the escape and gets his cane, he will probably not go to Eastern, but if he does, I think he's still in it. think what would have to happen to keep this close is that the dungeons that Chex Go modes... Oh, he does have the sword. Never mind. It's still... There's still a difference in the silvers, but it's going to be a little harder for Rob to come back from this. So yeah, it looks like he got the sword from Freezor chest. It's going to make his life a lot easier down the line. Every dungeon from here on out is going to be easier with that sword. But still, to keep this close, what would have to happen is the dungeons that Chex is Go moding would have to be very deep, big keys that Rob finds because he's not in Go mode, and Chex has to search for just as long as he does. And that's assuming that Rob does get his cane now and gets the fire rod. The Eastern Palace pendant, that is like his last pendant dungeon that he hasn't already been in. He could go back to Thieves Town, but that's... Eastern has more items in it than Thieves, so it's more likely to go there. Nice Agate 2 for Rob. Okay, Rob is on the right path here, but it's still a bit of a trek for him. He has to do this first before doing Dark Cross. I mean, he doesn't have to, but you will. You always do. Let's pay attention to where this big key is for Chex. He's still looking, so it wasn't in the first two. Ooh. Okay, Big Key was pretty accessible. It wasn't completely free, but it was definitely faster than full clearing. Considering that Chex found both items, or didn't find both items first, that means that Rob would be doing more checks than Chex in this dungeon. Rob checking his menu to make sure that he actually does need to do this. He knows, he would know, I think. But he wouldn't, he also wants to know if he has to do Dark Cross after. Because he did find the small key, which means that at least something is in these two chests. So he gets the map here, and that means he has to do Dark Cross, which has the Cane of Samaria for him. It's pretty fortunate for Chex that the fire rod he found in Eastern didn't lead to anything. Even when he found it, there wasn't really that much he could do with it that he couldn't have already done. Because that led him to the cane sooner. He didn't get sidetracked. On the other hand, Rob has a lot more potential to get sidetracked by the cane. Okay, fluting away. I suspect this will be Mire. Pretty hard to find the cane and have a full clearable Mire and not just do it. So now Chex is not only ahead in just being in go mode first, but he has more dungeons on Rob. That means that this is an extremely uphill battle for Rob if he wants to stay in it. ether for checks on Vitreous, which means that Rob will probably full clear the whole thing. And that's very unfortunate for him. Yeah, I don't like to say GG, but it's pretty hard for me to get Rob out of the spines. Chex just found the route that led to the items faster than Rob did. He had a little bit more efficiency in places like Kakariko Village, going in with enough resources to not have to chase bombs and money. And I think Chex... I don't think Chex has done South Shore. I think there are things Chex has just straight up hasn't done. So that could be part of the reason he has such a big lead. Yeah, well, if you're a fan of Rob J. Beasley, it's not over yet. This is a double header. This is game 1. That means that Rob can get game 2 and force a game 3 out of Chex, can continue in this tournament. When Rob was in the Glitch Mentor Tournament brackets, I think he reverse swept like all of his phases until he got knocked out. That means he was always losing game 1. He has the curse of losing game 1 and then gaining it back in games 2 and 3. It could happen again. You never know. Really nice movement through Meyer. I wonder if he'll go for the boss. He's going for the big chest, but he's not going for the cutscene chest. So maybe he'll go for the boss first, and that will save him a little time. He'll only lose maybe 30 seconds doing these. Big key chest, the torches chest, is pretty bad to do without fire rod. And he probably won't do it. Alright, this is good. He's going straight to the boss, which does have the second item. And then after this, he has... I mean, he could go back to Tile Room of GT. He probably won't. But he might go to TR. And that wouldn't be great. Best case for scenario for Rob going to TR is that the big key is just sitting here in Chain Chomps. So that at least the trip isn't wasted. Or it's in the one after this that's not fire locked. Okay, it isn't Chain Chomps. But then that also means that Chex is doing one less check than Rob would have done in here. An extremely laggy peg maze for Chex and TR. But otherwise has a pretty comfortable Trinex ahead of him. Half Magic and Tempered Sword. And Blue Mail. Should not be a problem. Yeah, we are still running on the tournament version of the randomizer site. There's something we did out of a community vote for the people still in the tournament. Another dual crystals. Chex and Rob showing off their prizes at the same time. Where does Rob go? What can Rob do here that he hasn't done already? He can clean up desert. So that was Chex's last dungeon. So all he has to do is run to Ganon and finish the game. It's actually unlikely that Rob will even have go mode by the time that Chex is done, because he has more places to go. A little bit rough that Rob chose the pendant dungeon that didn't have the rod. Both the fire rod and ice rod were in pendants. And Chex just chose correctly which one it was. Both of them went to Ice Rod Thieves Town. But between Swamp and Eastern, it was Eastern. Oh, Rob is going elsewhere. This might be Smith Chain. Maybe front of Skull. Protecting himself from the chance of Fire Rod in Skull. Okay, this is Smith Chain. So this is also Ganon for Chex. That is game for Chexhuman. Game 1 of 3. Maybe. Game 1 best of 3. Game 1 of 2 today. And it looks like Rob will be throwing in the forfeit. Giving them hopefully a little bit of a chance to rest before they start game 2. Once again, if anybody is interested in taking commentary for game 2, I will probably not be doing 2 solo comms in a row. So it would be very much appreciated. But we do have our tracker, Other Tom, taking both races. So give him a follow. He does play on occasion.